Hi class, it's Bill Berry back with another video in our Java 2 series. We're still doing things that are probably review to a lot of you, but making sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of moving forward, and it's stuff that you're going to need for the first project. So we have videos already on two-dimensional arrays and enumerated types. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Javadoc documentation. It's common these days for you to write a little bit of documentation on your own code. We're not talking about documentation on the project like a manual of how to use the whole software, but we're talking about enough documentation that if you're writing supplier code, which is code that is meant to be used by somebody else, some other coder, that you have the basics of documentation to let them know what are the parameters you're expecting, what the return values mean, some basic stuff that documents your code and makes it more usable. Java has this built in, and it's actually a very nice thing. It will generate HTML documentation for you, and all you have to do is put in a few tags in a few specific places. Now, in this particular course, I'm going to require Javadoc documentation. I want you to get in the habit, just so you are ready for that when you get into the world. And so you'll need to do that. And I'm also recommending or requiring that you do full Javadoc documentation. We'll talk about what full means a little bit later when we talk about excellent. But let's get in and talk about some of the stuff that you'll need to do to document it. So our style guide says to do this. I will ask you to do this on projects that will be part of your grade. And so in Javadoc documentation, what we're going to do is, first of all, we need to document something for each class, and that's that you're going to do a description. So let me grab, in fact, here, let me grab a pen so that I can do this. So where does the description go? How does it work? So let's go over to our project here for bank account, and let's see how that works. So where does this stuff go? Well, it goes at the very top right here. Right? So you'll notice that Javadoc tags start with /**. So that is not this is a regular comment. This is a Javadoc documentation comment. So notice first that that is a little bit different. And also notice that this must be right before the class declaration, or else it won't know that this goes with this. So you can't put your import statements here, or else you've sort of divorced those two things and the documenter will not pick them up. So if you have imports, they need to go here, right? They need to go at the very top. Now what you'll see is that when you compile and you now go from source code view to documentation view, which you can also do with Control J, that this will pick up, right? It simulates a simple bank account, the version, and everything is picked up now in this HTML documentation. And that all comes from this description. So at the top of the class, you will need a description, right, of what this class is. Then the next two tags as described in the slides, let's jump back there. We are going to want to go put a version and an author tag, both of those kinds of tags or annotations. So how do those work? Well, you're going to put the tag name and then the tag, or the @ sign, and then the tag name, and then some white space. Notice don't adorn this with dashes, parentheses, just put white space and then put your name. And then you can put a version number or put the date or whatever you want. Again, no white space, no parentheses, just white space, no parentheses, no dashes, no colons. Just put the thing that you're looking for there. So again, when you switch over to documentation view, that's going to be all pulled here. And so all that information is going to come nicely here in the description for the bank account. I'll do Control J to switch back. Okay, so what else do we need as part of documentation? Well, for the constructor and for all methods, we're also going to have parameter tags, and for methods, we're going to have return tags. So how does that work? Well, let's come down and look at some of the ones here, like the constructor, right? So the constructor, I'm going to have a description again, and then I have parameter tags. You need one of these for every single parameter. You can't lump them together. So you put @param, and then you put the name of the parameter. Then you write a description for what that thing represents. Then the next parameter, again, that's ID, that goes here, and then you have the next parameter. And of course, with a constructor, you don't have a return, so we don't put a return tag, right? So for each parameter, you want to put the name and the description. Notice what's not here. You don't put string somewhere here. You don't say string representing or anything else. The data types, in my opinion, should not be here at all, because if you change the data type, you'd have to go change the @param tag, and it's unnecessary. The documenter automatically picks this stuff up. So don't in your return tags and don't in your parameters discuss any data type, right? Now, if you work somewhere and they tell you to do it different, then you do it different. But for me, that's all you need to make it work. And you don't want to get confusion if you get these things incorrect later, the comments incorrect over time. Now, another thing that's nice to know is, let's say that, let's just delete this one for a moment, right? Just so we have a blank. If you click somewhere on the start of your method, BlueJ actually has a way to get you an easier sort of template for these things, and that is, if you go to the Edit menu, there is a thing that says Insert or Add Method Comment. So at the bottom here, if you click on that, notice that the method, it already brings a nice Javadoc starter. So you replace with the description and you replace this with the return description. So it's already got a good start at that stuff. Let me put the other one back. Let's find one that's more complicated like this, right? Again, I'll get rid of this guy and click somewhere in the header and do Add Method Comment. Notice it automatically puts the @param tag, and it even brings up the name of the parameter or parameters in a separate param tag. So it really gives you a darn good start. And then all you have to do is sort of, tab these things over maybe if you want to be a little more, make it a little more readable, and then tag these things over and start documenting. So that's a really good way to get a start with this and make it easy. You want to think about writing documentation for people who are going to use this code, who are going to call it, right? So client coders, they are your primary audience, but also people who are going to read this in the future, who come in to edit this code. You tell them the purpose of this method, you give them a little bit of background about what you're expecting, etc. Now, the other thing that you're going to see here, let's go back again to the slides. Right? Let's see, do we talk? Yeah, there's going to be a few more things that we're going to talk about. There's a little note here about inherit doc, so you can read that. Now, notice also that all instance variables and enumeration values require a description. So that's something that you might not have seen before, but full Javadoc documentation requires this. So every single one of these instance variables, all of these globals up here, class globals, you're going to need to have a Javadoc description for them, right? You don't put @param, I mean, it's not a parameter, right? It's just, so just write a description. So yes, you have to do that, and you may say, wow, that's a lot of work. Well, that's good, because if you're having to type a lot of these, you should go and check and see whether you need all those global variables, because some of you will probably arrive with bad habits about putting way too many global variables in your classes. Don't do that. So any enumerated types, each of the values needs a description, and each of your instance variables, you need to have a description for each of those. All right, let's see what else. So that's good. So now on to next slide. I showed you this add method comment before. We talked about the fact that you need to make sure you use that kind of comment, and talked about the fact that don't include the data types, right? Do not include the data types in any of your params or returns. One other thing that we want to talk about here is, what do you do about this thing where you have a precondition about initial balance? You'll see some examples where people will say @throws, right? They'll put that here, and then they'll say it throws an illegal argument if account is negative, or if balance is negative. If initial, it should be interest rate, right? Interest rate is negative, right? That's actually, balance is actually, oh no, that's actually correct. If balance is negative, right? So that is something that you'll see sometimes, but that's actually out of vogue, right? Because nobody on a client side is going to put a try catch around this exception. Right? There is no way they're going to put a try catch on their end around this exception. Why? Why would they? All they need to know is they're not supposed to do it, right? They're told very clearly. So it is out of vogue to do this, right? For this case, because there's no way the client would put a try catch. Instead, you just put it here, and they're on warning that you've said it must be 0 or greater. All they need to do is make sure that they give you something 0 or greater. right? So however they need to do it on their side, they just make sure the parameter's in range. They're not going to write a try-catch in their own code to do that. So that's one thing to note, that occasionally you're forced to do that. Javadoc in some cases will ask you to put in at throws, but otherwise you really don't need to do it, right? It's just not required. Okay, what else do we need to say? I talked about adornment. Don't put parentheses, dashes, anything else, right? Just write the basic information separated by white space. Last but not least, I don't, for my particular class, require that you document your test classes. I'm just saying name your methods well, right? So if your methods are named clearly enough, there's no reason that you need to put Javadoc documentation for those. I think they're kind of self-documenting. So for my purposes, it's okay. Again, where you work, they may have you do that. Typically, there's not parameters. Typically, there's not returns. So, you know, write the thing well, make a good name. You're probably fine in my view. Now there are some examples here, but we've already kind of walked through them. So I'm just going to bring them up, and then you can pause each slide if you want to look at them more carefully. But I'll just bring them up and wait a second, and then move on till the next slide. All right, so there's an example of the class, right? The class description at the top, right? Then the instance variable comments. And again, remember, these are Javadoc type comments, not regular type comments. Right, here's an example of @param. Here's some example of returns. And that's the end of our particular lesson on Javadoc. I think that's probably enough information for you. We are going to progress next to talking about xlint. Xlint is a compile option that lets you check a little bit deeper. And there's also a thing called xdoclint, which checks a little deeper to make sure that you are doing what you should do on your Javadoc. So those are interesting things to follow up on, but I'll put that in a separate video because the topic is a little bit separate from this, or a little bit of a follow-on topic. So thanks for watching this one, and hopefully that's helpful in getting you started and working in Javadoc notation. Thanks for watching. See you next time.